Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to Latina Mental Health with Latina professionals. So excited to be here, especially this month of September, which we are honoring Hispanic Heritage Month. So bienvenidos a todos. You are here with your one and only host, Norma Garcia. Once again, here every Thursday. Well, I lie, not every Thursday, but um, when I am able to present today on Thursdays, and we are here at 5 p.m. So thank you all for joining today. Today you're in for a treat because we are going to highlight some important traditional practices that are going to take us back to really understand and connect to our culture. But before we begin, I just wanted to welcome you all. For those of you that have been joining me every single week, I do appreciate your presence here. It really means a lot that you continue to showing up and just keeping an open mind to want to learn and be present. For those of you that are new, bienvenidos, welcome to these live series that I've had the opportunity to host for the past few months, in which I'm able to present on a mental health topic all surrounding our Latina community. Today will be about a 30-minute presentation in which I will focus on a specific topic. During the presentation, I do welcome all of you to please use the chat to interact and get to know each other. Please, as you're tuning in, let us know where you're joining from. Let us know your industry. What is it that you're really looking forward in today's presentation? And also, what is it that you love about your cultura? Because today, as we talk about mental health, we're also going to incorporate our culture in this conversation as well. So there we go. Yeah, so today we are going to talk about cultural healing practices, traditional approaches to mental wellness in our community, in the Latina community. Before we begin, let me tell you a little bit about myself and who I am. Let me just set this up. 1 second. There we are. All righty. So, I imagine that there was something about today's topic that really, called your attention, to be here today. And also, as I continue, today's presentation, feel free to ask any questions. There is a room at the end for Q&A. However, feel free that as I'm going through information, that you ask questions and again interact with each other. Although it may feel like I'm the one presenting, right? Your voice and your comments and your interactions really make this space so much more special and inclusive and brave. So I welcome all of you for joining. All right, so let me just check the chat to see so far, where are we tuning in from? I love to kind of kick it off doing this, just because it's always nice to see, where everyone is tuning in, and even seeing, how this moment, this time, this hour can unite many of us that live in different parts of the state, of the world. So far, we have someone that's tuning in from Chicago. Ooh, someone from Nigeria. So amazing to have you here. From Texas, from Massachusetts, from Michigan, from New York City. Love, love, love it. Arizona, Denver, another Michigan. Yes, yes. Love it. So I am tuning in from Los Angeles, California. So I am in the West Coast, but I definitely love to see everyone that is here with us, right? The power of connection and the power of just even this virtual reality that we're in right now. Awesome. So, all right. So who am I? So my name is Norma Garcia. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a life coach. I have devoted myself to my career for the past 10 years, working specifically with Black, Indigenous, people of color, specifically with an emphasis in the Latinx community. I've had the opportunity to provide direct mental health and crisis services in different settings, such as schools, clinics, even out in the community. My approach is always to take a culturally sensitive, looking at someone holistically as a whole person, and also from a trauma lens. I'm very, very passionate and empowering high achieving professionals. Um, and healing from their emotional wounds and having the capacity to be able to reach your full potential and ultimately achieve any desired goals that you may have. My ultimate mission is to continue advocating and educating on mental health. For me, mental health is something that I'm truly, truly passionate about. So anytime I get to talk about mental health and promote it and bring awareness, for me, it always aligns with my values. My journey also is of being able to break generational trauma and cycles and just being able to create a bigger impact. So for me to be the host of this platform through Latina professionals, it's such an amazing opportunity to one, be able to connect with all of you amazing mujeres, and I know men also joining here as well. But even then, just to have the opportunity to share more about mental health and the importance of our well-being. And so just to kick us off, just wanted to acknowledge, right, this month of Hispanic Heritage Awareness Month. This month, is dedicated to really honoring our cultura, um, and even being able to contribute, right, in terms of businesses, in terms of like, owners, in terms of just celebrating all of our achievements and accomplishments, not just individually, but as a whole together. So just wanted to take the moment to really honor us in this space, to be able to, celebrate, the amazing cultura that we are as Latinos and Latinas. And so, with this specific topic today, we're going to focus on cultural healing practices. Of course, now that we are in a more modern age, right? A lot of the practices, have been adapted to kind of meet the needs of the current society right now. But what I wanted to do is take a moment to really look back at the cultural healing practices, meaning the practices of our ancestors, of our parents, of our grandparents, of our great great grandparents, the practices that they used to be able to have mental and emotional wellness. So I really wanted to acknowledge that, right? And even as modern as we may become, how those practices are still very evident in our day to day, especially as these practices continue to be passed down through generations. So I thought, what a perfect, time to be able, to talk about this as we are honoring our heritage and our cultura, and especially for me as a mental health therapist, to also, honor all the wisdom and all the healing that our ancestors did for us, for that we could be in the position that we are today. So I'm going to be able to talk about different approaches that are relevant in our culture. Please, as I'm sharing them, if there's anything that resonates to you, if there's anything you want to add to what I'm saying, because there's things I'm not going to be able to cover for today, but there is something that's personal, maybe that there's a story that you want to share, or what you want to add, just anything to what I'm saying, please do in the chat. I'll make sure that I'll respond to it or share it with everyone, or after the presentation, be able to give you a response later. So the term cultural healing practices, what this means essentially is a different forms of healing, right? The different ways that we heal mentally, emotionally, physically, specifically to our cultura. And so a few of these include, so one big one is the curanderismo, right? Thinking about this traditional healing practice, right, that combines, herbalism, spiritual healing, energy work, right? Knowing that, curanderos or healers that still exist today, right? and who still use this practice of being able to use herbs and prayer and different rituals to be able, to um, help us find peace or help us feel more balanced. And also the use of sweat lodges or spiritual cleansing, right? Something that is really really present, especially we think about just for ourselves. Like we can, I can think of like, my abuelita who, still kind of practices some of this. And although at times there may be some stigma or some negative perceptions about a curandero, right, in our culture, this is something that truly truly exists, and we believe in. um, Even, herbal remedies, right, like the different herbs and plants that we use to either cure, like when we're sick, when, we're going through something emotionally or mentally. I do feel that as in our culture that we have a lot of knowledge about the different plants and the different medicinal purposes, and just even the beauty of being able to use such natural, organic herbs and plants to help us heal in terms of just again our mental, emotional well-being. Common, herbal remedies that I remember from my family with are still pretty common now. Is using like yerba buena or like making some teas, um, things of that sort. All right, so I think the light is hitting me. Hold on, guys. 1 second. There we go. Sorry, the light was like hitting my face. And then we have, talking circles, right? That in our community, and we can think of this like of even like our indigenous practice, right? If we think about just, where we came from, and like the importance and symbolism of like having talking circles, right, being in a circle, being able to share that space, in which, different stories, shots, and thoughts and experiences are being shared. I know myself as a therapist, talking circles is something that is huge heavily in terms of creating community, creating safety, creating an ability to share, our experiences together. There is also, cultural arts, right, the way that we incorporate the arts in our day-to-day in terms of, dancing, movement, music, right, storytelling, especially in our cultura. We connect so much to music, we connect so much with the expression of our body, the expression of art, right. It's a way that we celebrate our traditions, our rituals, our emotions, right. And so just remembering how, with the arts of the way that we express ourselves, right, these are traditions, these are expressions that have been around, from since our ancestors. So being able to now see how that now continues to be part of our everyday rituals and day-to-day living. Okay. And then, one of my favorite ones is like traditional foods, right? Like how we connect with food, right? How it is that, the certain mixes that we make, and especially if we think about the different regions where we're from, right? Everyone kind of has like their traditional dish or the way of like preparing certain foods, right? Even like the vegetables that we use, the fruits that we use. There's a lot of symbolism that comes from food itself in terms of like, what ingredients do you mix, how do you put things together. So as a way that food itself is also healing, right, cooking itself is healing, baking is healing, right, thinking about how these different practices, right, how they help us heal, right, because there are ways that again we're able to connect with our culture, we're able to connect with people, but in that process we're able to also release and heal ourselves again emotionally, mentally, and physically, and really thinking about food as being like as a nutritious part of ourselves, right. And then we have art therapy, right? Kind of going along with the cultural art, right? How even art itself, right? The use of art to be able to paint, pottery, right? If we think of, just the different artistic art, the different things that in our culture, right? Like handbags, pots, right? the paintings, right? I think of like whenever I visit Mexico, where my parents are from, and I think about all the art, all the design, all the colors, right, and everything that is being made. To me, it makes it think about like, wow, like not just is this so artistic and talented and creative, but the healing that also comes from it, and being able to mix colors and visually create things, and even then it being something that we're sharing as a community. So it's important how to see that there's different elements, right, of how we heal, and as individually, right, we also have our own forms of healing, right, but a lot of it is because it is being passed down from our ancestors, from old generations, right, um, and even how it is that we're still connecting, over this, and even like seeing how like it's still something that um even just like as a culture, right? Like there's a lot of belief in and things that we continue to practice in. So far, um, I'm wondering, I'm gonna go over the chat right now. If anyone else, has anything that they want to add, like how have they seen these forms of healings kind of like in their family and their culture? How is it that perhaps you incorporate some of, cultural healing practices from your family, a tus abuelitos, your tías and tíos? I definitely want to be I'm definitely curious to see how everyone else, right? These are really generic ones, but in terms of for you personally, right? How have these healing practices manifested, for you, or been present for you, or what are some things that maybe you now also pass on and use yourself, and also are passing on to like future, generations. So I'm gonna go over to the chat and see. If anyone has any thoughts about, so I see someone here that talked about, using yerba buena as tea. Yes, it healed everything. Even if we think about like vaporu, right? Like again, it's something that, is believed, right? Like when you're sick, when you have a cold, like vaporu is like the solution for everything. And as silly as it sounds, right, that in itself is a healing practice, right? These healing practices are beliefs that our ancestors had that truly have the power to healing us in some way. So yes, the yerba buena is a common one. Let's see who else. Who else would like to share some cultural practices that they've seen? All right, someone else said, un postrecito para alegrar el alma when we felt a little. Yeah, again, food, right? That if we have some dessert, that it's going to make us feel better. Passing on culture and food to children who are half Spanish and having them to be proud of their Latin heritage. Absolutely, yes, yes, yes. Culture and food and our rituals and traditions, the way that we celebrate things as well. How even as a community, how we come together. Here's another one. Sana sana colita de rana. I always say to my friends, yes, absolutely, yeah. And it's interesting because some of these things are now trending as well. If we think about like social media and how these things are popping up and are becoming more of the norm. What else? Let's see. And my mom thought we always had ojo and would rub eggs on us and they would cook. Absolutely, yes. Cupping is another healing technique used by indigenous people. Agua de Florida was always used when we were sick. Un sancocho with lots of root veggies to cure a cold and even just to feed the soul. Yes. Using plant-based food for medicinal purposes that Western culture has not normalized. My dad would play the Vicks on my back, and when I had a cold, when I could not sleep, he would warm up a cup of milk for me to drink. I'm a naturalist. My mom passed down the healing power of a pregnant woman and her saliva, bee sting for arthritis and more. Yes, yes. And I love that all of you guys are sharing, these cultural practices. As we see, there are similarities that we all kind of share. And there's also some things, right, that perhaps we're not familiar with. But it is always like interesting and just even like so powerful, right, to hear and to know how it is that we incorporate, these healing practices, right? And that although yes, we live in a very like modernized Western, with medicine and everything, the beauty that we still hold on to those cultural traditions and practices. I know as a therapist, I can be biased because, therapy is a healing practice. However, I do believe in, again, holistic healing where we need to pull from different sources of strength, different sources of healing that are going, to work, that they're going to, work for us. Um, so I felt, it was really important, right, for us to remember this, right? To remember, right, that although there is all this medicine and all this progression in terms of healing, that how unique our culture is, right? And having its own healing, medicinal, natural, indigenous practices that have been in existence for years, right? And are still in existence now. And for us to be responsible to continue that legacy, to continue those cultural practices with ourselves, with our children, to be passed on, so that way it continues to remain alive, and that we continue, not just this month of September, right, to honor our heritage and our achievements and and how far we've come, right, but for centuries to come, that those cultural practices are still here in place. So here just combining, right, thinking about like how can we approach things in a more holistic way, right? How can we combine culturally rooted practices, right, with evidence-based mental health interventions that can provide a holistic approach to well-being for our Latina community. And what I mean by that is with therapy and like mental health, and there has been a growth in terms of the acceptance of therapy as a way to heal. And there are evidence-based, meaning like a lot of research that is being done on specific interventions that are meant to help to heal and support, right? But also knowing that there are also cultural indigenous practices that could also be incorporated, right, to this overall holistic approach of our healing. And I'm not here, to just preach on like, mental health or like therapy because I am a therapist, but really how can we look at ourselves in a more holistic, right? Especially when if we are going to go, ask support or reach or learn different ways of healing, how can we approach it in a way where we are looking ourselves as a whole, right, and not just one way, not just one way. um, and again, really incorporating, right, like our tradition, because we cannot do this separate, right? We cannot heal without our culture. We cannot heal as a community, right? And so learning, together, helping each other together and uplifting each other is really what's going to make all the difference. So I also wanted to just provide you some mental health resources that are specific for our community. Here are some of these directories where you can actually find a therapist. Those are actually created by Latinas and Latinos themselves. So I think part of this month too is about not just having the awareness of our heritage and our culture, but how do we also support each other, right? How do we support each other in terms of, supporting other businesses, reading books, watching movies, how do we lift our cultura? So I wanted to just share these resources as well as a way to also support, specifically more surrounded to like mental health. But even then, just good information for you all to have. And so, with that being said, just wanted to leave some room for Q&A to see if anyone had any questions, anything else that they want to share in terms of, again, their own practices within their family. Um, Let me check over the chat right now. So I see a few more comments regarding some practices, some ruda to remove negative energy. Uh, Agua ruda again, yes. Wearing a red bracelet as a baby para que no nos ojeen or to protect us against malas vibras. Absolutely, yeah. Mhm. Dancing helps with endorphins, creation of more cells to harden social interactions are all good in the mind. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So again, think of today just again how, as whatever form of healing that you decide to do, right, that you really honor, right? Where it came from, and then you also incorporate right some of these practices that are so culturally important and significant and that are unique to us, right? And for us together to support each other in this process and not be of something right where we are also then stigmatizing or interfering with some healing. So thank you all for being here. I hope that you guys continue celebrating this month with a lot of orgullo, and you continue to honor each other as a culture, and you continue healing and doing this process as it isn't easy. Thank you for sharing this time with me today, and I will see you next time.